From prehistoric time to today, man's progress has been marked by his ability to fashion tools and use them to his advantage. From early humans making tools from stone, man evolved and was soon trading with other men. Money evolved, and tools such as the abacus to handle complex money transactions were developed. By the end of the 19th century, machines such as the cash register began to appear. 100 years later, we have even better computer-driven machines which track stock, change prices, and automatically reorder. Meanwhile, the reinsurance industry has failed to embrace man's drive for progress. The reinsurance industry today would be as familiar to practitioners from the 1800s as it is to modern underwriters. An underwriter or broker from 1800 would settle nicely into today's business. That is, until now. For the reinsurance industry, pivot point changes everything. Soon it will be understood that the period before pivot point was as dark as the caveman period was before the abacus. Come and see for yourself if you don't believe. After a demonstration, you will understand what is possible.
The Australian Transport Safety Bureau's investigation into the Qantas 747 incident last month is beginning to yield some results. An oxygen tank apparently exploded and blew an automobile-sized hole in the 747, but the Bureau seems no closer to figuring out why. The release of the interim report confirmed earlier suspicions by investigators that the tank was the cause. The acting head of the agency says, "We don't really know why the bottle failed. That's the key question." He said the investigation most likely will go on for months. The 747-400 was carrying 365 people over the South China Sea on July 25th when the explosion blew a hole in the fuselage 79 inches wide and 60 inches high. The report said that one of the 7 emergency oxygen cylinders below the cabin floor had exploded. The 26-pound steel cylinder, pressurized to 1,800 pounds per square inch, sustained a failure that, quote, allowed a sudden and complete release of the pressurized contents. Most of the cylinder rocketed up through the cabin floor, shearing off an emergency exit door handle and narrowly missing a crew member before striking the cabin roof. It then ricocheted back through the hole it had created in the cabin floor and blew out the fuselage. According to the report, the cylinder had undergone a safety inspection shortly before it was installed in the jet, about 6 weeks before it exploded. In San Diego yesterday, a walkway collapse left 16 people injured when a block-long wooden structure collapsed yesterday afternoon. Authorities said it was unclear why the walkway collapsed. The covered walkway was across the street from the St. Vincent de Paul Village Shelter and was a favorite locale for homeless people seeking shade in hot weather. And in West Virginia, 1 worker was killed and a second injured in an explosion at a Bayer crop science plant. The explosion sent a fireball hundreds of feet into the air and could be felt miles away at about 10:30 p.m. last night. The blast occurred in a section of the plant where waste products are treated before disposal, according to Bayer. The plant is located about 10 miles west of Charleston, West Virginia, and residents there said that they reported hearing the blast. Fresh tests carried out near a Belgian medical laboratory in Charleroi, Belgium, showed that a leak of radioactive iodine last week is worse than initially thought. Samples of grass taken next to the National Institute for Radioactive Elements had shown higher levels of radioactive iodine than the initial tests. The Belgian Federal Nuclear Watchdog gave the incident a 3 on an international scale of nuclear events that runs to 7, making it the worst ever in Belgium. Late yesterday, it warned people living near the laboratory not to eat lettuce from their gardens and told farmers not to feed their cattle with grass from their fields. Hospitals throughout Europe could face a shortage of medical radioisotopes used for imaging and treating cancer after the lab has halted production following the iodine leak. And in Japan, fierce winds lashed the central part of the country, bringing heavy rains, inundating vast stretches of rural and residential areas. Authorities dispatched about 100 soldiers to the hardest hit city of Okazaki, about 140 miles south of Tokyo, to rescue stranded people from homes. At the storm's peak, Okazaki was soaked with 5.7 inches of rain per hour, Authorities have ordered 140,000 households to evacuate. And in some aviation news, Boeing and Egypt Air announced yesterday an order for 2 new Boeing 777-300 extended-range planes as part of Egypt Air's twin-aisle fleet upgrade. The order is worth about $500 million at current list prices. The airline is slated to receive its first 300 ER in January of 2010. 56 customers from around the world have ordered almost 1,100 777s, and Boeing still has more than 355 unfulfilled orders for the planes, representing $91 billion at current list prices. Speaking of Boeing products, Zoom Airlines, which is a popular discount traveler in Europe and actually ran twice-weekly flights from Gatwick down to Bermuda, announced that it has ceased operations, blaming the huge rise in fuel costs. All flights scheduled to depart have been canceled, and Zoom